There was an interesting article today from Arrowhead Pride titled, "The Chiefs' Three Biggest Defensive Questions for Saturday's Game Against the Texans." Subtitles, "What Can We Expect from the Kansas City Chiefs Defense in Saturday's Divisional Round Game Against Houston?" by Nate Christensen. I will be talking about two of the 3 points because my aim here is to supplement, not usurp. So, the number one thing that this article asks is, can the Chiefs take away Nico Collins on in-breaking routes? Texans receiver Nico Collins has emerged as one of the best in the NFL over the past 2 seasons. Collins is one of the best X-receivers in the league, combining elite size and explosiveness to win on the outside on a variety of routes. He's fast enough to burn past outside cornerbacks on post routes and go routes, but has enough agility to separate on slants, crossing, and dig routes over the middle of the field. He's a winner on contested catches as well. With offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick, who comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree, they use Collins in a similar way that Shanahan used Julio Jones or even Brandon Ayuk. The X receiver in that offense tree runs big dig routes over the middle of the field to generate yards after the catch and explosive throws on play actions. Against the Chargers, Collins had success on these routes. Here is a chart of the routes on Collins' 8 targets on Sunday. And he had 8 targets, 7 receptions, 122 yards, a touchdown, and 60 yards after the catch. Very impressive day from Nico Collins. The article itself continues. So this is what this part of the article is talking about. This route here that was a touchdown, this one here and here. Just sort of this middle of the field there is what they're asking about in this article, talking about in this article. The article itself continues, the Chiefs will have to plan for Collins to get targets in this area of the field often. The Chiefs play a lot of cover 4 on early downs, having 4 deep zone defenders distribute routes. Slowick will dial up concepts that try to vacate the near side safety to Collins' side so they can throw dig routes behind the vacated safety. The Chiefs' cornerbacks will have to do their best to chase and contest the windows, or the safeties could even look to bait Stroud by faking them, leaving a zone, and then diving underneath with Collins throwing underneath the Collins throwing window. Pardon me. We might also see a large amount of one double coverage on Collins, shifting a safety to Collins' side, inside to ensure they have leverage on him inside and out. With their lack of other weapons due to injury, the Chiefs should be able to hold up on an island. Now, this is a picture of last game's wide receivers for the Texans. Tank Dell led the way with 6 receptions, 98 yards, and a touchdown, a 16.3-yard average. Absolutely on fire. Nico Collins had 7 receptions for 60 yards, 8.6-yard average. We compare that 7 for 60 to 7 for 122. Now, it would seem that you can say, okay, well, the Texans are now without Tank Dell. And Nico Collins is going to get those bigger yardage plays, the plays that Tank Dell was getting. Well, okay, I can follow along a little bit. But here's the thing, and I have not gone back to corroborate this, but from memory, Tank Dell is their big threat. Tank Dell would have been the guy that you had Trent McDuffie covering. So, Tank Dell was taking the attention of our number one cornerback. Went 6 for 98 and a touchdown. Nico Collins, therefore, would have been on or covered by Najee Johnson / Joshua Williams, both of whom, as we covered in this morning's video, are kind of number 3 cornerbacks. So you had a true number 2 receiver, a borderline number 1 guy. There are many teams in the NFL for whom Nico Collins would be the number 1 wide receiver. It just so happens they have spark plug Tank Dell in Houston, so he becomes kind of the number 2 target. So you had a borderline number 1 receiver being covered by number 3 cornerbacks. In this game, Tank Dell, the number 1 guy, is not there. So the number 1 cornerback, Trent McDuffie, falls to Nico Collins. The number 2 cornerback might be Jalen Watson, as we covered in that video this morning. Jalen Watson having an absolutely miraculous recovery from a broken tibia and fibula. Was a full participant in practice yesterday. We will see how that develops during the rest of the week heading into Saturday. But guys, if all of a sudden it becomes Trent McDuffie locking down Nico Collins, it's a much different game. And here's the thing, even if I'm wrong, and it was Trent McDuffie on Nico Collins last time, well, Trent McDuffie held him to 7 receptions for 60 yards. If the number 1 target in the Texans offense is going off 7 receptions, 60 yards, it's going to be a difficult time for the Texans to win this football game. I think that the Texans have a realistic possibility of winning this football game. I think that the Texans are, I said this since last season, a team to be respected. They have a fight to them. They have their entire roster has a sense of athleticism about it. They reminded me last year a lot of the 2018 Kansas City Chiefs, a team that was sort of plucky, a team that was good at certain positions and had a quarterback that was outplaying what it was that expectations were. I don't think they remind me of the Kansas City Chiefs very much right now. I think especially in those early incarnations, because it's the defense that has really been impressive for the Texans lately. But they do still have, when CJ Stroud is playing well, that's a difficult quarterback to defend. So I just want to put that out there. The number 2 thing here, and this is where things are going to get spicy a little bit towards the end of this, can the Chiefs get their pass rush going early and often? I looked into a couple of things about the last time the Chiefs and the Texans played, and I found some things that I didn't know about that game, some things that just didn't stick out to me in memory. If you've watched the Texans this year, you've probably noticed how porous their offensive line is. This goes across the board. Usually, left tackle Laramie Tunsil has played at an all-pro level, but he's had a lousy year, to the point where there are games in which he's an active negative. Strong words there. Left guard Titus Howard is one of the worst guards in the league. Center Jarrett Patterson isn't big and often gets pushed back. And we're going to see a little bit about that and the results of that in a moment. Right guard Shaq Mason has looked slow-moving side to side in pass protection this year, and now he is injured. At right tackle, rookie Blake Fisher got inserted before the end of the regular season, and he regularly has rough moments. On top of this, the protections within the scheme haven't been as good. Stunts, blitzes, and different pressures befuddle this offensive line. All year, there have been free runners at CJ Stroud. Interesting initials to come right there. Free runners, CJ. They've never been able to solve the leaks within their protections, which is fodder for someone like Steve Spagnuolo. The Chiefs' pass rush had moments where it struggled, particularly in the middle of the season, but it ended the year strong. Playoff football often comes down to getting pass rush, and against a porous offensive line, I would love to see the Chiefs' defensive line unit get collective pressure and shut the water off for Houston's offense. Last time the Chiefs and Texans played, Joshua Williams and Mike Pennell had sacks. I remembered that. What I did not remember was that there were 11 quarterback hits. I did not remember both Chris Jones and George Karlaftis having 4 hits apiece. Those are big numbers. Steve Spagnuolo is absolutely going to ratchet up the pass rush in this game, especially when you look at the fact that the Texans last week really executed at getting a lead, getting the game in position where it could be won, and then just running the clock out. The Kansas City Chiefs do not want to find themselves in that position. Should the Chiefs defense and Trent McDuffie be able to lock down Nico Collins, I think Steve Spagnuolo is going to throw the kitchen sink at this offensive line. And last time, if Chris Jones and George Karlaftis combined for 11 QB hits, or 8 QB hits between the two of them, 11 QB hits as an entire defense, guys, I think he's just going to throw everything at it and see what happens. CJ Stroud is an interesting quarterback because he's good when the play breaks down, but he is absolutely deadly from inside the pocket. A lot of quarterbacks, so the reason I say it's interesting is because he can throw on the run and he's very mobile. So normally you want to contain that type of guy. But if you allow him to step up in the pocket, that offense has a release valve for him, and he's going to hit it. So I think the very perfect thing for this defense to do is to leave Chris Jones right in the middle of that defensive line, staring right at their center and an offensive guard. Do not put Chris Jones at a tackle at the edge position in this game. The thing the Kansas City Chiefs are going to have to hope emerges in this game is a complementary edge player to George Karlaftis. They have several players because I think it would behoove them also to keep Charles Omenihu at defensive tackle most of the day as well. So if you can get a hot hand from Mike Dana, then this game could put very early. But you have to have that. And if you can cause disruption to the passing game, what happens is, last game, Trent McDuffie and Jaden Hicks both had interceptions. There were 7 pass deflections. Justin Reed led the way with 2. So there were a lot of players getting their hands on a lot of passes. I think a lot of that has to do with 11 quarterback hits. There's no question in my mind that heading into this game, the big deal for the defense, especially with Steve Spagnuolo and his proclivities, will be getting pressure on CJ Stroud. So when you add these things together, getting quick pressure on CJ Stroud and hopefully limiting Nico Collins, what starts to emerge is a picture of an offense that is going to have to check down and is going to have to check down, or should the Kansas City Chiefs be successful in their pass rush, should Trent McDuffie be successful keeping Nico Collins under wraps, they're going to have to check down. They're going to have to check down early. And this could be one of those things where the Texans, if Jalen Watson finds himself back on the field, the Texans didn't see Jalen Watson the last time the Kansas City Chiefs played them. Jalen Watson he's underrated, okay? He can bait a quarterback. He's deceptively fast, and he is a deceptively long athlete. So he's going to be able to get his hands out there in ways that the quarterback just doesn't see beforehand. So if Jalen Watson is back as well, I'm adding ifs. If the pass rush gets home, if Trent McDuffie is able to hold down Nico Collins, and if Jalen Watson finds himself back on the field, this game could get away from the Texans the way that much of last week ended up getting away from the lower-ranked opponents in the playoff bracket. I'm not going to guarantee that. I think that the Houston Texans team is too plucky for that. They have too much wherewithal for that. I really do kind of have a soft spot for this Texans team, but that is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on the channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.